This is going to another source, Renault websites. The first one I went to there was the France Renault website. This is the co.uk, the UK Renault site, and this has this three-dimensional picture you can grab and drag, and this is particularly gorgeous presentation. It's about the substance of the vehicle, but this is presenting it very well done. So we'll just enjoy the show here for a moment. Look at the blended colors in the background. That is gorgeous. With some intuitive functionality. There's the vehicle on the outside. Then you've got the interior. Press that button, it switches over. Takes a moment. And this gives a true sense, a true idea of what the interior looks like. It cannot convey all the sort of space experience. So not as good as being there, but technology moves on, and some operators out there lag badly by 5 or 10 years relative to what can be done. Others are up there at the lead with the possibilities. Well, this is to that order. This is superb presentation. We need this efficiency. This is not how pretty it is. This is about a very basic matter of trying to get the information of what this vehicle is, understand it, and what we need is all of the internal trims presented perfectly, so I don't have to go to the dealer. If you go to the dealer, they've just got one trim. This is a common problem. They've only got 2 colors, and I want to see all 4 of them. These are common problems. So doing it audio-visual, doing it with over the internet, if you did it very well, I could get across all of the colors, all the interiors, and have a true one-to-one to the reality view on them. That's the requirement, and we're getting closer to it. This technology is very impressive, and Renault has done well to go and put it into application here, while other websites with other companies are using older tech and doing an inferior job. This is very good. Again, it's not about how pretty it is, it's about being able to get a true sense of what the vehicle is if I was going to buy it over off the action of looking on the internet here. But we need to be able to get a sense of all of the variants to decide between them. Right, now that's the full screen function for this, and this is the rest of that page on the UK site. So that's called Arctic White. Now I'll mention this recycled, with this interior, part of the upgrade is it's not about it being vegan. You should be doing that anyway, vegan compliant type of thing, as in no animal products. That's going to work with 5% of people or something. That's fine, go do it. But the interior should be totally non-toxic, which find me a maker that does that. We saw the BMW i3, the electric vehicle by BMW, and they were heading in that sort of direction. But this type of recycle stuff from the ocean, plastic bottles from the ocean, I don't want to sit on plastic. Why are you making my seats out of plastic? You can grow material in the field, and it's plant material, viscous material, and you can make fibers out of that and make fabric out of that, and then it's totally non-toxic. Don't go and get plastic from the ocean and make seats out of it. Here's the thing. Don't buy plastic bottles in the first place. Glass, and they're fully recycled. I don't buy plastic. Don't buy plastic. Then there wouldn't be plastic to recycle. You don't go make plastic, throw it in the ocean, and then fish it out of the ocean, and then recycle it, make seats out of it, and then we're sitting on more plastic. Right? That's just sensible, but seems too much for the industry to get across. We got a number of fabric types that are totally non-toxic, durable enough, and they don't have to last forever, and you can replace them. You got seat covers. You can make excellent seat covers and say, well, they don't last forever. After 5 years, you might need to replace it. And here's the whole blueprint for it, and it won't be a high cost replacement. You're sitting pretty. It protects the underlying seats, and the underlying seat is non-toxic, is the vision. And then the seat covers are non-toxic, and then you can replace the seat covers. They don't have to last forever. Are we solving things? It's not that hard. Stop making the interiors toxic and the new car smell. I go to this show, the Electrifying Everything show, and you get a headache. I don't get headaches, but you go to this place and you got new car smell coming out of all of these cars. Broadly, the big shed it's in is well ventilated relatively, but still, there's so much bad air there, and it's not healthy for human beings. Stop making toxic interior of vehicles. It's not a request, it's a demand. So again, put me in charge, and we'll make sure that's done, and it's part of the sell of the vehicle. The competitors, if they haven't already done it, they have to play catch up. It's all doable. You can make a steering wheel without toxic. You can make all sorts of equivalent sort of plastics without toxic. Anyway, I won't further talk about it here. There's a long list of these other items that go to making a vehicle properly, and I can explain them all, but we won't get into all of them here. So I'll just put this picture right up again. Let's put the car itself up. The exterior, I meant. If it'll come up. It's lost its mojo. So, what we have is there's another vehicle that we can do this with. And that is the Scenic small van. Get rid of the Kangoo van, and instead we're going to use the Scenic E-Tech electric, and then it'll have the van format on the rear, but it will have the styling and the same face as the Scenic E-Tech. Is this doable? Let's just ask that radical question, and it's an embarrassing question. Of course it's doable. So don't argue against it, and don't use some business idea of saying, oh, but we're reserving the look for our very stylish Scenic, and so we can't use it on something else, and maybe to drag down the sort of prestige of it and so on. Don't do that. It's an idea. You can think this business idea, but just don't. It's not really relevant. It doesn't have priority. It doesn't have dominance. Somebody has a beautiful vehicle. Does it matter if somebody else has a beautiful vehicle? It really doesn't. Your vehicle's beautiful, the other person's vehicle is beautiful. So the vehicle will be very substantially different looking in the van format, and it has the same attractive face. There's no problem with that. There's just no problem with that. So the other thing we should be talking about up front is this type of mindset of saying, well, it's a van, it's a utility workhorse, and so fleet buyers buy it, they have it for 2 years or something. They sort of run it into the ground. They do 100,000 kilometres a year, 150 maybe over 2 years, and then sell it on before it starts falling apart out of wear and tear into the second-hand market, and they buy a new set of these same workhorse vehicles. So they don't care about looks, and typically we can add, they don't care about safety for the drivers, so then the manufacturers just compromise safety for the drivers, and then they don't care about the looks, so they don't put anything on the looks, and then they just put the vehicle forwards. And then the fleet buyer is going to be dominated by the concern of just the initial lead cost, and we're buying a lot of these, and the cost factor is dominant. And then there can be all sorts of compromises based on the price. But then we've got this really very silly thing going on. If we pushed all the way through and got to the truth, right? Would it make a difference if the truth was found out? It would. So if you put heavy steel wheels on the vehicle, then the vehicle is much more inefficient. More inefficient, that's not good phrasing. More tends to be in more direction, and inefficient is something that's stating sort of less. So let's go back on to the start point there and try again. The vehicle ends up having worse efficiency. And then you've got fuel costs that are much higher, and then the business has greater costs. So it's an inferior vehicle to buy, and it's false economy to provide the vehicle with the steel wheels. So it's just a mistake. Now, if the fleet buyers knew what's what, if they had the true information, and if there was, you'd have to have it. If you had some other offering from some other company that had the full set of the right stuff, then the right buy would be the other vehicle. So what happens here is, if all the competitors fail, or you don't have any competitors, then this other company can fail and get away with it in this market. So here in Australia, what other electric van can you buy of that size? The E-Tech Kangoo, and it doesn't have any competitors. This sort of thing. Are any of the Stellantis vehicles here? I mean, if they were making similar fails, it's a rehashed older styling and so on. It doesn't matter about the stylings of the fleet vehicles, but this concept about this principle about, if all the others fail as well, then you've really got no competitor to outdo you on your fail. And businesses sometimes use this. So there's two things here. If the fleet buyers really knew the true numbers, and then the other part is if there was another option that gave the full package. So this strength with that one, and that one. So you haven't got pluses and minuses, and then they're sort of bad in different ways, but this one's just better. Then all the sales would go to the better one, which shows that you're building a wrong one. So putting steel wheels on the Kangoo is just wrong. And you say, well, the Kangoo the electric one is heavy with the electric battery, and then you put in cargo. So, right, have you heard of flow form wheels? Have you heard of put a bit more aluminium alloy, in the wheels so it's strengthened? So you could go a bit more of the aluminium alloy to make the spoke area, to strengthen up that part. And then you flow form out the barrel, and in turn with that, again, you add a little bit more material if you need more strength, and then you flow form it out to give that material more strength by the flow forming effect. And then, so there's a solution. You can make aluminium alloys strong enough, as much strength as you need, and then it's lighter for the strength for two reasons, because it's aluminium alloy instead of steel, so it's lighter. And then for the barrel, you flow formed it out. We know all of this stuff. You know that stuff. You can apply it, and given the cost of running the vehicle and the multiple penalties of heavy wheels, and the heavy wheels makes the vehicle more difficult to stop. It makes the vehicle more of a slug in terms of acceleration. It's slower. That makes the vehicle less safe. And this goes to other aspects of the fail of the vehicle. You're underpowering the vehicle, and it's a slug. You should not be doing that, and you should not be doing that with electric vehicles, where you can put in a bit more motor at a relatively low cost. Because of the powerful efficiencies, superiority over combustion engine vehicles of electric motors. It doesn't need a transmission, no transmission. Electric motors are much less expensive for a given kilowatt and importantly, Newton-meter torque, which goes to a strong contribution for performance, and particularly when the weight factor, carrying things and then getting off the line, performing, accelerating, etc. The torque plays an important role. So put in enough motor. This is instructions on the fix-up of the Kangoo. So the Kangoo it'd be good to be able to have a picture of that. Have we got a picture on this website since I'm here? The Kangoo is, they don't have it in the UK. Is that the problem? Or it's in the commercial division? I don't have a picture here. So Kangoo van is unattractive, and they can have it as a workhorse, and the front's got the bulbous. They can have the reasonings to say, well, we built it that way and it's okay, is what they're saying, but there's no reason to have it that unattractive. So let's fix it up, and well, what can we do about that? Here's the Kangoo, and we've got the picture at this level. Long wheelbase, short wheelbase, is that what they're doing there? Are they different lengths? So long wheelbase, short wheelbase, this sort of length factor in terms of looks is just, it's going to look different. When it's longer, we need to do a job. It is about a workhorse and so on. So we're not talking about that sort of dimension, just the length and the wheelbase and so on. What we're talking about, well, when I was talking about steel wheels, I was talking about in Australia, they only have the steel wheels. And here in the UK, they have, to the sighting here, different wheels. Well, look at that. I talked to them at the Renault stand at the Everything Electric show. I talked about the steel wheels that they had on show, and I said, well, does it come with aluminium alloy wheels? And they said, I talked to the product specialist that was there within Renault Australia, and he said, no, it only comes with steel wheels. I said, well, you should be able to option it on the aluminium alloy wheels with flow form if you need the strength to carry the load of the battery with the electric vehicle plus the cargo you're carrying. At least let us option it. And the guy fully understood it. He said, he'll pass on the feedback, as they call it. And well, it's good to see in the UK they've got something that looks like aluminium alloy, but I haven't got any information yet. I haven't found the key part that just says what it is. Oh, what's that? See, that picture says aluminium alloy. What's that? Steel wheels. I don't want steel. So that's the look of the one that's in Australia. Steel wheels. The picture we started with there. It's not about the styling, but the styling is better with that aluminium alloy that they had. The matter is that the aluminium alloy with plus or minus the flow form would be lighter. That's the point. It does look a lot better with there's so many different wheels stylings. They've just chosen this one. It's flat enough on the surface, it looks like. It got some decent looks that would stand up. They've already, across all the different wheels out there, there's so many. They've already found something which some other vehicle makers fail when they go searching. They found something with this wheel in picture here. Not so much that one, but it's far away. I haven't had a good enough look. That has 3 dimension sort of aspect look. It looks kinetic. It's just fitting with the vehicle, and it may be flat enough on the surface and enough spoke thickness at the surface to do some measure of sort of an aero cover effect, though it's not overtly showing off any aero effort, but that's what should be there, and it should be also in Australia, that we've got the aluminium alloy, but we don't have it here. And so enough on the wheels at the moment. It's just an existing problem. I'm trying to find information about those. It's fitting for the vehicle, but this vehicle is broadly fairly ugly, and it's pretty easy to get across it, analyse what's going wrong. So we can talk about, well, do we need this high ground clearance just sitting up there unnecessarily, just a little bit higher than needed, and then less of a driving machine and less stable around the corners and so on. So that needs to be checked. This is for next generation, basically, and just start the next generation after we've got the right design, proceed on. Now this steering wheel, this windscreen is way laid back. I mean, go steeper, you're going to catch more wind, yes, but then you've got a better cockpit, and as a valuable bonus, the vehicle will look better from not just pure side on, but quarter side on, and so on and so on. Now, then you've got this nose bulbous just hanging out the front, and your proportions here in terms of space before and in front of the wheel is wrong. Why have such a sticking out front? Now, we can just put the wheel a bit more forward and share it between the front and the rear, and it would look better. And now we've got also with this that what you go to is an approach where you throw out the previous generation. You don't try and do an iteration variation. You don't say to the designer team that we've got this previous generation, we'll do something similar, we'll just change it up a bit or something like that. Don't do that. Just say, if it's not working, it's not working. Just start from scratch and get in there amongst it and do it. So when we've got this over here, it doesn't fully show it, but up on screen, you've got this plastic clad one, and that's the one that really is ugly. And somebody can argue, well, you've got cladding, and you need that, you want that because it's a utility vehicle, it's a workhorse, and things get bumped, and you want it durable. And there's fleets that buy it en masse, and they don't want to pay extra, so let's make it easy, low cost, replaceable parts that just endure bumps all over the place and keep going. So hence this plastic. Well, we hear the idea of it, but why are you smashing into anything? And then on the other hand, why is anything smashing into you? You could drive for 100,000 kilometers and nothing smashes into you, and you smash into nothing else. I mean, isn't it how we all need to drive, that you drive around, you don't hit anything? So why is it being bumped? Really, I mean, answer it. Why is it being bumped? Now you can say, but things do get bumped, right? So there's a metal part and you can replace it. You've got other methods where you can have panels that start a certain place, and you can take off that whole panel. And look, what's the cost difference? How close is it? For one, they drive it for 200,000 kilometers. There's a few dents in this thing, and they leave it. They're not fussed about the aesthetic. Just get out and then do another day's work. So they didn't have any cost. In the interim, they can sell it second hand. It's got a few bumps on it, and then the next owner could buy replacement panels if they buy it as a private vehicle or something, for example, and that's their choice. They've got a second-hand vehicle that's depreciated significantly by then, and they can choose to do that. So you can just keep it and play it all the way through to selling it into the second-hand market, and the price difference on recoup is near nothing, so it gave you no trouble. See this vehicle here in picture, in the middle, with none of that plastic cladding, looks much better, whereas this one, the one on the right, with the plastic cladding, which is not properly shown here in picture, that's quite ugly. Ugly is a strong term, but it's bulbous. This one in person, the one on screen now, doesn't work properly. It's just not good enough looking. And again, don't just bail out and say, well, it's a utility van fleet buyers buy it, and nobody gives two hoots about whether it's ugly or not. Don't go there. You're not even trying. Right, so let's just make it better looking. Now they've got the Ford small van equivalent. I'm trying to think of the name. Courier. The new Ford Courier, and they've got the squared off front. So there you go. I mean, you would do better if you had the Ford Courier styling and did some fix up on that vehicle, give it better power rate ratio, give it performance, don't make it a slug, and then, well, there's other things to talk about. Is it wide enough, and so on and so on. The previous generation was too narrow. There's a certain number of things to attend to, but as a start vehicle, there's a straight replacement, and it's better looking, real world. It's not about the photo shoot, and there's some offsets with the photo shoot and looks better than in real world, but instead, what is it in real world? So this photo shoot's very pleasant. You pick the colours well, and this makes the vehicle look better than it is in the real world. It's about the real world, and it is not good enough looking. So you need it to be a workhorse. Fleet buyers buy it, yes, but it doesn't have to be ugly. Right, so this plastic cladding is just not required. You don't need to go there with that. You're sort of dressing it down, making it look worse than it need be. Don't do that. So get rid of the steel wheels, because that really is a fail in driving efficiency, running costs, braking distance, acceleration, performance, safety. The list goes on. And put on proper aluminium alloy wheels that are strong enough and the flow formed as required. Don't run false efficiency, false economy. There's a whole treatment here, and steel wheels are going to negatively affect your range, and range is important for operation, and so on and so on. And if you have much more efficient vehicle because the wheels are much lighter, which flow form is delivering that lighter for this given strength, so go there with that, then you can put in less battery in the battery pack and you save money that pays for the flow form. So are we learning yet? It's false economy to put on the steel wheels. You can make aluminium alloy wheels flow formed that are strong enough to carry the battery, and there'll be less battery in there, and carry the cargo. So you don't do the steel wheels. So we'll have a better looking vehicle, and then you've got this, if you make the vehicle look better overall, again, look at the Ford Courier, the next generation, the 2025 one, and it's better looking than Kangoo. And you could just be making a vehicle like that that's just better looking. Let's get on with it now. They're basically the equivalent size. And so if you do the vehicle well, it's the same vehicle coming out of the factory. You can put in attachment points internally and be selling it as a vehicle that is either set up one way or the other, and you can set it up with the internal second row seats type of thing. Don't push for a third row, it's not long enough. So this means you can access more sales. That sort of thing would mean you got a version with the windows put in, but don't bother doing that if you're going to do ugly like this. This vehicle is, the current one is ugly. Why would you be, you're not going to get the volume of sales as the alternate to a two-row sort of private vehicle, high roof utility vehicle. So it's not a sedan, it's a high roof vehicle. It's the Scenic done properly, or the size up from that, where you could buy this van format instead. But no, don't do that if it's going to be ugly. Let's fix it up. And so you could use the Scenic front on it and have it more squared off on the front, which the Scenic front has. So there's your solution. You use the Scenic front on the Kangoo, and then we could put on some proper wheels on it, and then we fix up the rest of the shaping on the vehicle. And then the tail lights, well, we're going to do whatever's best utility for that. You might have these more run down the D-pillar lengthwise tail lights for the van, because it's suitable, appropriate for it. So the front is the Scenic, and with the squared off front aspect, put the front wheel forward so we don't have an excessive bulbous long nose and so on. We don't have any of this ugly plastic cladding. We just don't need it. Just don't smash into things, right? Tell your workers, just not smash into things. How about not smashing into things? Right. So, and I've explained if it does get bumped, you just keep driving. Don't have to go and spend money to replace it. That's the reality of it so much. This is sort of a cliche, just, it's a workhorse, so we're going to put plastic cladding, and then the fleet buyer wants to buy a vehicle with plastic cladding because they're a fleet buyer, and it's a cliche versus what about the actual reality? It's just unnecessary to have the plastic cladding. So doesn't save anything substantial in the initial build of the vehicle. You're making metal parts and painting them and putting them on an assembly line, and here's another one. And so the price difference in the assembly is in the manufacturing, putting it together, doing it one way or another for the initial sale of the vehicle is really neither here nor there. Price-wise, it's so small, marginal, then you don't let that go uglify the vehicle. So they're really playing at the cliche that this is going to make your vehicle more robust and lower cost to run. It's the association that, it's got plastic cladding, so this is going to be more efficient vehicle to run. We're doing a fleet operation here. It's the cliche of it. That itself may not give you anything for making it more efficient, better dollar equation sort of purchase over the full life of the vehicle, but it's association trickery. So let's just put that aside and just make the better vehicle. So I'm looking at the Scenic 2025, the Scenic face, and that paneling of the bonnet and so on, with that wheel being substantially more forwards, and then a much steeper windscreen, make the van wide enough, don't have it too narrow, and then the rest of it is very much van format to the back for the functionality, so it'll look like a van. And then we do a proper job with the rear in styling. So with care, and you don't need to make this very last lower part with the bumper protrude excessively out, doing again the cliche versus what are you smashing into down there? Is it just so convenient that everything that you smash into is just at that height or something, or runs a vertical rod? So how often does that end up saving you? So you can have a bit of a bumper, but just doing cliche and again making it all sort of a grotesque bulbous, and you're uglifying it all for the cliche. Practically, functionally, really does nothing. Real world, across 10,000 vehicles, there's nothing between it, and you just made 10,000 vehicles ugly with this grotesque bulbousness. Don't do it. Don't do that. So let's back to that power performance stuff. Let's make a van that has proper power performance and some proper safety. This first part of the vehicle here, where the driver is, everything from there's the bonnet, where you put the front wheel, and then you have the driver. There's no reason why we couldn't, because we determined to do so, go and make that whole section properly safe. 1-to-1 to the level, let's rephrase that, as safe as the high-grade passenger vehicle. Don't go and say, well, it's a van, so we're going to compromise safety. So now amongst it all with the van, we can be saying, well, let's have dollar efficiencies, these sort of things. There is the factor, it's for consideration. You could be losing sales, or it could be that you've got efficiency and you end up seen as the smart van option, and you get more sales. And it could be, again, making savings, but it depends how that turns out. Can we have a central driving position? If we're looking to have safety, well, safety for one versus safety for two. The safety for two is going to cost more. Central driving position, no two rows across the vehicle. It's a van, aren't we doing a van? It's a van, so the driver gets in, goes around, does the deliveries, and then goes back to depot, charges up the vehicle again, and gets another cargo set of stuff to carry, put in the back, and then heads off again, over and over again. So it's in an argument format here, sure, but if it provided efficiency, that's where it starts to be interesting. So it costs less because don't have a seat. It costs less because you don't have an airbag there. It costs less. You don't have a seat and a seat belt and a headrest, and the mass of that. The vehicle's lighter, one less seat, and the airbag's substantially expensive. And we're trying to do proper safety, so we got the frontal airbag and the side airbag, and so on and so on and so on and so on and so on. And proper safety, so we've got an airbag between the two passengers in the front if we had to, and they're costly, and so on. And the test for the ANCAP test would be, well, there's two people in the front, so how did they perform versus if there's only one? You're sort of cheating the test here, but there's only one seat, so you've got to test on that. And so we could get better results for the, in fact, one seat that we've got. So for the real world, there's no cheat. The person that is in there is given that safety protection that is shown up by the test. And so we can work all of this, and in the end, it could be worth it financially. You can lower the cost than where it otherwise would have been. You can make a real cockpit and make it quite a delightful place to be. People favour it. You have to get the fleet buyer to recognise that and value it or whatever. But there's also you can back and forth on this a little bit, but just sit with it for a while. Don't dismiss it up front. And that is the private business owner, the smaller business owner, or a smaller business where they've just got 4 or 5 trucks, and yes, somebody buys it, but they're just not far off in an office buying 4,000 units. And so, tax write-offs, all of these sorts of things, and they can be the vehicle that some of the workers take home on the weekend. Operates as their private vehicle. Quite a number of businesses operate this way, and they can like the driving machine of it. So, and the superior safety and so on and so on. So if they're going to take the kids off to soccer on the weekend, they're not taking this vehicle because it's a cargo carrying vehicle. But some businesses like this much smaller vehicle, a smaller business, they just drive the vehicle home on the weekends, and they're using it as the second vehicle to go up to the shops, and there you go, cargo carrying, it's good for it. And it can have a lot of appeal, a lot of superiority over the opposition. I mean, a lot of superiority. It's a no-brainer they're going to buy this one. It's not more expensive, it's just well built. It's very good looking. It's got the Scenic front, and it's got the relatively very light wheels, the smaller wheels, and it's strong for the task, and it's got excellent safety. And we've got the central cockpit set up, and proper width on it, and so on and so on. So this is exploratory. In the end, we can be, we're looking at it and saying, 2 across, it's a default, and so on. Do we really want to get out there and do this central driving position? I mean, look at the Tesla truck with a central driving position, the central cockpit. And it's a big truck, sure, but what a place. What a way to go. That's an interesting thing to look into for vehicle makers, and we can explore it here on the project. We may end up doing the old 2 across for the net of reasons, but you need to look at the different type of buyers and look at the advantages and look at the cost reductions of the vehicle overall, and that price point is a big factor. We know that, and we just do it a different way. We're doing certain things much better, and it may cost just a little bit more. Other things, it costs less, and we do it better by smart. And then other things, it costs less, and it's better. So it's a mix of things. Right. Better in many ways. We gave up some stuff here. There's not another seat, but why do you need another seat? You're a delivery person. There's one person in there. That's the reasoning. Everything has its limits. So this vehicle doesn't do that. And you say, once a year or once every 5 years, Bob says to Jack, give me a lift to somewhere. And look at that. Lucky we got another seat there. The rest of the time, it's just an extra seat you're carrying around. So how about we just forget the trip where Bob gets a a lift by a jack, and say this vehicle doesn't have another seat, it just has a central driving position, a cockpit, central, and then less cost with no second seat. Easier to pass the ANCAP test at a lower price. Have excellent safety for the one person that's in there. Better driving safety because you've got a central position, as opposed to on the far left or far right of the vehicle with one pillar really getting in your vision outline there very badly, and so on. You're better off in the centre, and you're hedging your bets. You're further away from the left side and from the right, from at least one side, instead of being hard up against one side for a side crash. So just overall percentage of play, you're better off in the central position safety-wise for preventing a crash, and also if you were in a crash. And so we point that out, sort of a long list in an orderly list format, itemized, of saying it's better in this way, better in that way, better in that way, better in that way, better in this way, and better in that way. How about considering this better vehicle for so many applications? It could well be the smart vehicle for your situation. I mean, you got your cargo area, you got your driver, you get out there and do the job, and this does it all, and it does it in a more efficient way. So why wouldn't it be this vehicle that you buy? Why does any delivery vehicle have that second seat in the front? Why would you do that type of thing? I mean, you can push it all that way there and work back from there. It's for delivering. One person drives, let's have the cargo area, and you do stuff. Right. Now, if you have the central driving position, a good sort of function of how you get in and out of the vehicle, you could have, you can get out either side. Now, also there's the exploration of saying, well, you could just have one door on one side if you build it dedicated to a given nation, and that's the side that is the pedestrian side. Now, the idea of that would probably not make production. We don't follow through with that. We need the flexibility getting out. But I mean, if you're sitting on the far left, you were going to go in to get out one side anyway, and now we're putting in a central driving position. So for the driver, they were only getting out one side anyway. Now we're just doing that. We're picking the side they're getting out on and making it the safer side of the two, and then we're saving money on not putting two doors. This is part of how we save the money relative to having a second seat in there. Then we're having the second seat. The second door, because we've got the second seat for that once in a year where somebody else is in the vehicle. So we've paid for an extra door and all the mechanism. That's pricing up the vehicle, and it increases the weight of the vehicle and weight up high because the mechanisms and the strength requirement of the door for opening, closing, slamming, and so on and so on, and holding up over the years, there's more material in it. It weighs more than what would be a solid panel over that area. So you'd have it lower cost and lighter, and you could potentially do a better job with the sort of acoustic insulation, thermal insulation, if it was just a solid structure that never opened, instead of having opening gaps and what you're doing with all of that. So we can have further dollar savings there. We saved on the seat cost, the seat belt, the headrest, the airbag, side airbag, the frontal airbag for the passenger, and the door on that side, on one of the sides. And that's mass up high, and so goes the list. We keep going. And we just say, well, once a year you might have given a lift to Bob versus Bob, the vehicle doesn't have an extra seat. You'll have to get a lift with somebody else. You'll be right. This is a cargo van for work, and we have a driver's seat and the cargo area. Makes sense. Right, so it has the Scenic front, has the style, has the looks. We got the high-grade safety, and now you're making the vehicle look good, and you can make this same vehicle with windows in the second equivalent of the second row, and you can put second row seats. From the factory, it has the cockpit front seat, which can be highly desirable for some people. Has been, well, let's buy this vehicle. I like the cockpit. And 90% of trips for the family operator there, private passenger vehicle, they chose to buy the van format. 90% of trips there's only one person in the vehicle. Then they've got a second row. They've only got two kids or one child, and then they can have while the kids are young, they could have one adult in the back, one of the other parents, and two kids, one on either side or something. It could be a bench seat in the second row, a bit of cargo carrying space out the back. So we can do a much better Renault. So let's have a look at the summary of this now. We have the Scenic E-Tech, and you could go E-Rev as well with all of those. And we are making a series of vehicles out of this because the Scenic E-Tech 2025 in white, in the best trim variant and with the best interior, which we can identify and so on. That one, we can have certain efficiencies that I've talked about, so I went in production. And then we go and upgrade the vehicle in important ways. So we do all of that before we start the series of vehicles. And then we put the right treatment across all of the vehicles, so they're done right. And then we make sure we're really going full out on the safety. We make it a real pick of a vehicle. It's the right thing to do. You need to compete within your sector. Don't have a fail on safety. Renault has had a real mixed bag on that with some of their sub-brands connected. What's the Duster called and stuff? Some of the crash performances on some of their vehicles, the Clio and such like that, it's been horrifyingly bad. And so they can choose to make something to the order of safe, or they can choose to make something appallingly unsafe. And which one are you going to do anywhere in between the spectrum? Well, let's go all the way and make this spectacularly top end of the spectrum. That's the rules. And we can find certain parts of how we do it that are done very dollar efficient, so on. So let's have a look at it. We got the Scenic upgraded, much upgraded, the Scenic E-Tech, much upgraded. Higher roof, better power rate ratio, better performance, better safety, a whole lot of efficiencies in production, better A-pillar. And I failed to mention, I just put it in here, try and keep it short because I was going to go to the summary. But what it is, leave out the it is that when you get to the longer format of the vehicle, what do you do with the D-pillar? Sorry, the Scenic E-Tech, Renault Scenic E-Tech as it is now in 2025. I need to swap over to that picture. Before I do that, those particular alloys, they're pretty smart for a delivery vehicle. It just has utility, strength, functionality, sitting with the vehicle well. We're going to change the vehicle, so we can use the E-Tech wheels on it and have aero. We're making them anyway for the Scenic E-Tech. So we've got mass production, delivery, and so on and so on. And if there's room for improvement, chances are there's much room for improvement in lightweighting them. We can go fix them up, make them even better, and then put them across all the vehicles, including the van. So what's here in these pictures has some right things going on with it. But if we go have better wheels, and we're putting it on the other vehicles, we put it on the van as well. So there's details we'll work through, but I'm jotting down things as I see it there. And it's a very complex calculation. It's for all the cost in versus benefits, the sort of upgrades, and then the more sales you get, and so on and so on, and market sectors you can access. So you have to engage it that way to be approaching it right, and then go work through with it and judge correct. Now, getting back to the Scenic pictures, since we're talking about this, so the summary here. Many upgrades to this start vehicle, the Scenic. You've got some superb design, particularly all around this front, and the detailing and the tying together, and the rear. and then over the top, very good design, and how the wheels sit with that. This middle part with the panelling is nothing special, but there's no fail there either. And then we're going to upgrade the vehicle, very importantly, by a much higher roof, steeper A-pillar, and much better headroom, much better vision out, get rid of the block in the windscreen, and much better vision out everywhere. We're going to get the internal cabin totally non-toxic, every part of it, like every vehicle should be. And then we're going to improve the internal engineering, much improve the internal engineering over certain aspects, there's room for improvement, and have the vehicle much more efficient. We need to do that to really be there in the top tier. It's a strategy, it's a thing to do. We learn how to do it and we become masters of it. And we have efficiencies in the way we mass produce this vehicle. We create an architecture for this vehicle. We're putting it across lots of vehicles. We've got these different vehicle categories, and then we've got potent efficiencies there. What about the 48-volt system that Tesla did on the financial disaster of the Cybertruck, which we all saw was an abomination from the start, really, but let's not put controversial things for some into this file, so let's just quieten that one down anyway. They did quite a number of really interesting things with the engineering technology side, showcasing it and developing all through with that vehicle. And that has application within Tesla for subsequent vehicles. But external, elsewhere in the industry, what are we doing about the 48-volt system? And if it gives some marginal benefits in your wiring network, your wiring harness being lightened up and lower cost and lightened up, lower cost and lightened up, these are very valuable. It's not just one or the other, it's both. Right, and you can be more efficient with the whole vehicle as it is with that. So it ends up lower cost and the vehicle's more efficient. Right, we're getting there. And likewise, a whole lot of list of things. So, let's get that working. We first upgrade the Renault Scenic. There's a list of these things within the file. And then we bring it across the sizing. So we work down to the Megane, my least favorite size of the size we're looking at in the lineup. Then we've got the Scenic size itself, and then we go up to the 4,700mm type size, a direct alternate to the Zeekr 7X and the Tesla Model 3, and for the functionality, not so much the strict centimetre length measurement, but the Kia EV5, and then a lot of new vehicles coming through from China in the very near term that are also sort of alternates for the same sort of application use. And then we've got the step up even bigger than that, which I'm looking to the estate format for it. Low ground clearance, low floor, smaller wheels, which is part of the upgrade of this vehicle, going to smaller and lighter wheels in terms of wheel technology, and matching smaller wheelhouse, which this vehicle can carry by a degree. Just if you went many steps down, yes, we'd run into trouble looks wise, but you can step down a little bit and it still holds together, no less, yet the vehicle, no less in looks, no less, just different, no less in looks, it's just different, and yet the vehicle ends up 4, 5, 7, 10, 15% more efficient, and we need that, and done very dollar efficiently, the net of everything. So what then we are looking into is the estate, so we can work through there, and this is where we start getting into that sort of length. What are we adding? A C plus D pillar with another window in between. We've got this tiny little triangle on the original one, and then we can just extend that out. So a little work in design to hold it all together and make another beautiful vehicle out of our start material, but having something that ends up being of difference between the C and D. We know what the ready solutions are. The BMW X5 itself is, which is just where we started with this sort of analogy example, so we have a framework to work with. We're doing the treatment with this Scenic, Renault doing it with their product here. So easy fix with this C to D pillar for the much longer vehicle of, for example, the Estate, 4,850 maybe. How long do you need it? I mean, longer and longer, and you can just show the number and say it's this massive vehicle. But when it comes to cargoes, you have first and second row, and we're not pushing for a third row. It's not a three-row vehicle. It's part of the rule set here. I mean, 3 rows, we just leave it to a full-on, full-size sort of built for it, not a pretend third row. And so you end up with more spacious second row even, more spacious first, second row, more spacious cargo. What are we doing with the slightly more length? But after that, just more length is just more mass, more cost, heavier, more difficult to place on the road, more difficult to park at the supermarket. So with the wagon format, the Estate, the shooting brake, it gives a styling and a little bit more cargo space, and some may like it, and then we could have that as that additional one. And then it's an alternate to sort of big whopping SUV. You got all this excellent carrying space, but it's smaller wheels, lower ground clearance, low floor, high roof, easy step in, step out of the vehicle. It's a better option for many people. They recognise that and they go that way. So we offer that. Then you're directly competing against all sorts of vehicles that are this sort of jacked up SUV thing of the same sort of functionality internally. And we're just a better option in the end. Better driving machine, safer for avoiding lots of types of crashes and so on. A better driving efficiency with the vehicle, and so on and so on. Right, so that's the model. It got lengthy, and then we have the other one, which is the van, which is in the series there of talking them through, in the actual process of talking it through in some level of detail instead of the summary here. The van was mentioned last there in the list, talked through last in the list. So then there's the van. This is the Kangoo replacement, and frankly it needs replacing. It's a bit of an ugly duckling, and we can do better. And here's a gorgeous vehicle that Renault has internally, and that could be the van face as well, the van front quarter as well. And while we're at it, the van wheels. It's all doable, and then you just put on the van type, first, second row tracking back, and then you're skilled with how we do the rear lights, so that it's yes, got the functionality, but no need to make it ugly. And then have this full tie together, so still work with what's on the Scenic and see just what's the van version of it, and let's tie the whole vehicle together, styling wise, panel work wise, just as we see with the original Scenic here. And then it comes in white. The van comes in white. It's utility. It's white. And why not? I look at it, and I'm not settled on it, playing CEO, but I look at it and just say, look, if it truly does save money, and you just keep making dollar savings in many ways in the way we produce the vehicles, the white looks good. It works with all of this styling, and just buy white. All the other colours that they have thus far tried, Renault, vastly inferior in terms of the end product look and style. You lose so much of the features. The appeal of the vehicle is much reduced with so many of the other colours. So if it saved money in production over the 5, 10, 15, 20 year look, 200 year look, 500 year look, you've got a winner here. Just keep making the same vehicle. You upgrade the engineering, same style. It can be truly timeless. And it's not so much about this Scenic size and not this one that we start with the low roof, the incompetent roof. It's not that. It's the higher roof one, all the way to the back. Excellent functionality, better proportion vertically, and then smaller wheelhouse and smaller wheels and that would make it look better and have better functionality, and flow form wheels that are making it even lighter, and all sorts of upgrades. Next generation heat pump, the 48-volt system for a lighter electrical harness, and the list goes on. More efficient motors, more efficient inverters, and the next generation and battery, and it's even lighter. And yeah, there's a long list. I won't keep going on it all. Just get me on team, and I'll make sure everything's attended to. This sort of working around the back, this in picture has a certain look, but it looks even better in person. This front has a good amount of sort of squared off look, and that would look good on the van. Directly go put on the van. Don't do the sloped, angled down van sort of front and it's all pokey like you've got on the Kangoo at the moment. Just let it have a square front. We see Ford went with the Ford Courier square front. It's fully available. Let's put this sort of front. Start with just putting this front on the Kangoo van. Put the wheel in the right spot. We're going to go with smaller wheelhouse and smaller wheels, and then that fits with the van anyway. And then we have the etc. Okay. Now, when it comes to the van, I didn't get into that, but you'll have some sort of screen for the worker, and then these sort of screens that give certain totally core functionality for the delivery operations of a worker, and keeping up with the listing for managing inventory and where next and so on. Well, you're going to have a screen, aren't you? And you're going to have some toggle switches. So these sort of pieces, which is in your supply line, can be put into the van, and don't count it as being, oh, but that's in our luxury passenger vehicles, so we're going to have something different. Well, you need it snappy fast, and it needs to be clear, and you're going to have some switches, and chances are really for operations you want to keep your phone charged. So when we get to it, why go make something else, spend all that money developing it, get a supplier, and at the end all you're doing is all the same stuff, and you just deliberately tried to make it ugly with the idea that you were going to save costs, but in the end you were just trying to make it ugly because it's supposed to be so because you're making a van and you're supposed to make it lower cost, and so you're associating ugly with lower cost, but in fact you just burn a whole lot of money in developing something new. How about just using what we've got? We needed all of this anyway, so we're doing that. So you can just get this cockpit and put it in the center for the central driving position version if we go that way, and there it is. Just think right and just say, look, if we need it for the van, just use what we've already got as parts bin, parts supplies, and we'll just put it in. Don't go and deliberately try and make an ugly version because it's a van. Right. You needed a surface there, use that surface. Doesn't cost that much more, and these sort of things anyway. Again, you can do this sort of thing of saying, well, it's a workhorse, so somehow it's going to get all beaten up, scratched up. Why so? You have a spot for the clipboard, so you put the clipboard there, and the clipboard holding bin might get a scratch or two on it because you keep sliding in the clipboard, but elsewhere, like up on the dashboard, you're just not going and smashing it with a hammer. You leave it alone for 20 years. You drive the vehicle and you didn't put anything there. You got storage spots. If you had a cockpit design and you have just wrap around with the cockpit, you got storage bins tucked in sort of on behind your left hip and right hip, out of the way for you getting in and out of the vehicle, wherever that's happening. And so you end up with plenty of storage bins, and so you're just not having things thrown up on the dashboard and scratching it. So the dashboard can be this fabric, and it just is in excellent working condition 20 years later. So you don't have to uglify it and make again the van totally non-toxic. Interior. Right, so that's the plan. And I've recognised now, way late, that I've been a long way from the microphone for a while talking here, because the microphone was way up high and I sat down here to get to the mouse to move things around. So that was a mistake just in the production level quality. Hopefully the microphone picked it up well enough, but it was it's going to be a bit uneven in the audio in that section. If I get a solution for editing that and fixing it, then it won't be through in the end video. But if it ends up in there, then just apologies for that bit of a miss in regard to that. Now I'll end the file there. There's lots more details to cover, but that's where you would bring me on, team, and I'll just go right in there and dance that dance floor. There'll be lots more added. It's all banked up with me, but it's right to limit what's been said in this video. So I'll end the file here. This is instruction to Renault. Their opportunity is rich here, but they need to recognize it, and then they need to run a multi-phases, staged sort of process and not make mistakes. So you can hire me and I'll make sure it goes perfectly well. End of file.